This is today I got a special guest, someone that I met on Facebook, I guess about a year ago, probably through a common friend or something. But
Yeah.
we've done half the podcast we haven't even recorded yet because it's so interesting. And it's Trinaka Jamison, who lives in you live in Kenosha, right?
I live just north of Kenosha by about
Just north.
But I used to live in Kenosha up until a year ago.
Oh, okay. And like so I got the whole scoop here, but Trinaka, you want to like tell everybody about yourself, like kind of what you were telling me earlier a little bit?
Sure. Well, I am an activist and a writer and a speaker on social and racial justice issues. I got my start in the United Church of Christ. I was an early congregant to Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago under the great Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright. And I went away from the church for a little bit in my teens and 20s, had a little questioning, a little, is this the right thing that I want to do? But after I became a mother, it became clear to me that having a spiritual base and having that community was something that I wanted to provide to my children and get back for myself. So we joined my then husband and I, we joined a congregation, a United Church of Christ congregation in Milwaukee. And we just so happened to join when a confluence of things was happening within the United Church of Christ. They were looking for more women's voices in leadership positions. They were looking for people of color. They were looking for more radical voices too, by the way. And so after 2 months of having been a congregant, they said, hey, wouldn't you like to go to General Synod as the delegate? And not knowing any better, I said, sure, a trip to Atlanta, I'd be glad to go. So I go and I'm hooked. I am one of those people, both in my professional life and my private life, things that interest me. I'm very interested in procedure. Something like Robert's Rules of Order, that excites me.
How did you end up in the UCC? I was PCUSA, and you said that's PCUSA talk right there. Robert's Rules of Order is like the Third Testament or something. It's like, the Hebrew Scriptures, the New Testament, and Robert's Rules of Order or something.
Yes.
Isn't that how it works?
I am a strict adherent. I was a moderator for our association. So yeah, I can call them out if people are out of order. I have no problem. So at the General Synod, that was the one, 2005, where we passed a resolution to formally acknowledge gay marriage. We lost a third of our churches with that one vote.
Left the denomination?
They left the denomination. The entire Filipino conference left the denomination.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, and then we had churches, now that those congregations have left, we have churches that either openly identify, I guess you could say, as open and affirming, so O&A, or there are few conservative congregations left that call themselves, I'm trying to remember how they put it, faithful and something. But it basically means we don't want to have gay marriage at our church.
Right.
There are very few of them. Most of them left. I was of the opinion at the time, it was time for change. And this was something we'd been working on for over 30 years in our denomination. And people were tired of asking nicely. And sometimes, when you have issues of the intersectionality of your faith and how your faith informs your social views and where you put your energy, sometimes you have to act up. You got to get into trouble, as they say. So I was one of those people that said, well, you know what? Don't let the door hit you. Go worship somewhere else. What do we want us to do? Say goodbye to all these faithful people who have been waiting decades to be formally recognized as full human beings because you're uncomfortable? Yeah, we're not doing that. So they left a few years after, at the same time that Synod was going on in 2005, I was then nominated local church ministries board, which is the national board of directors for UCC. That board for 7 years. I also served on the audit committee. I served on when you're on the board, you also then go on these subcommittees and things. So I've done other things. I've helped plan the synod. I was the liaison with the Disciples of Christ, which was a great experience. And I think for me, what I get from my faith and my reading of scripture and trying to better discern God's purpose for me and God's hope for this whole world is I try to embody as best I can that idea of loving your neighbor as yourself. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, because quite honestly, I mean, you've seen some of my posts. I don't love everybody all the time. I don't. I'm human, okay? But I try to act in a loving way as much as I can. And so for me, that means if I have something and I see other people don't have it, I should be working so that we all have. So if I have a good job, health benefits, and a nice home to live in, if I love you, I want you to have the opportunity to have those same things.
That'll preach.
Right? It's a very, I know for some people, the way that I interpret my faith may seem very simplistic because then, there are a lot of people that get into the, what I call the ivory tower theology, and they want to quote you chapter and verse, or they want to bring up some theologian from 100 years ago, or they want to, examine the philosophical nature of faith. And I'm like, no, God resides in my heart. I am supposed to, as much as I can, express love and faith. Faith, I do believe, without acts is dead. I don't believe in saying I'm Christian. I believe in doing I'm Christian. So for me, speaking out and always in defense of those who can't defend themselves or those who are asking for other people to stand with them is something I'll always do. And I do think that, there's a place for the people who are a little bit more gentle. I'm definitely not a gentle person, but there are certain areas where you need people with a more firm voice, and you need people that are a little bit more blunt. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I don't have compassion, but I do think that one of the problems is that those of us on the quote unquote left, and I do have I have a lot of issues with labels and boxes and things, but let's just, for the sake of argument, we'll say the left. I think that those of us who are faithful in whatever spirituality, however we express that, and you're on the left, socially and politically speaking, you're seen as weak. You're seen as not as effective. I was on the board of directors at UCC. We had 1.9 million members nationwide. We were, and still are, one of the 3 largest denominations in America. But when you watch the Sunday morning, talk shows, and they, going the rounds, and they want to get, what's the Christian view on something? They never ask us. Right. It's always, somebody like
Jerry Falwell.
Yes, it's like
a week or 2 ago,
or that woman that makes no sense.
Paula White.
Yes, it's
right.
Always so people have this image of what it is to be Christian, and then there are those of us who don't fit that image, and for some it's baffling. For some, they're insulted that I call myself a Christian.
Yeah, I know.
Which I take as a badge of honor. And then there are some, and it has happened in my life a few times, that as I'm doing this work, as I'm writing, as I'm interacting with people, somebody will say, like, what drives you to do that? This is the only occasion upon which I'll proselytize, so to speak. I wouldn't go knocking on doors or stand out at a corner on Main Street on a Saturday with like a microphone telling people, hell's coming. It's not my way. But if somebody looks at how I live my life and they say to me, why do you do what you do? Or why are you still happy or content and all this stuff is going on? Why do you seem to be not as concerned? I do think that's an opportunity for me to open up that conversation about what Christ can do. And it has happened a few times in my life that I've brought people to the church, that I have had really meaningful conversations with other people of faith, but not exactly my stance. And I think for me, that is the greatest expression of my gratitude for God, that I can share that with people. I don't want to cram it down anybody's neck. And I don't need to do that. Sometimes I feel like people go out of their way to proclaim their faith. Just, a bunch of sound and fury signifying nothing.
Faulkner reference. All right.
Yes. And if all you're doing is talking, chances are you're not doing. Mm-hmm. I'm very suspicious of that. If you haven't really done anything for anybody and yet you call yourself a Christian because you can quote chapter and verse, I don't recall Jesus saying that was one of the requirements. I don't recall needing to know the Bible backwards and forwards. I don't recall a list of rules to live your life by, whereby you automatically get a pass. And this idea, like the rise of prosperity doctrine, the rise of believing that Christianity has suddenly become for the haves and not the have-nots. I don't understand how that. Mm-hmm. Jesus was a prophet of the unwashed, the poor, the unloved, the marginalized, the criminals, the immigrants, the refugees. How exactly did we get to 2020 and now Jesus has been co-opted by the upper class, somewhat by the middle class, and they want to tell people in the lower class and the marginalized, well, he didn't mean you. Really?
Yeah. We're going to tell you how to believe.
When did that I'm trying for the life of me to figure out when that occurred.
So how does your faith walk? How does your faith inform your life in Kenosha? Not just, and I don't want to just talk about every time we had the rally yesterday here in Ocala was about Jacob Blake, and right. that was just what, 2 weeks ago? Has it been 3 weeks even?
3 weeks.
About 3 weeks. And my dad actually was from Kenosha. I was last.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were in Kenosha it's been a while, 15 years. 2005. I was going to school in Louisville and seminary and about to do my CPE that summer, and I had about a week before I started my intensives. And he came up to visit, and we drove up to Kenosha for a couple nights to see a little family. It's last time there. And I remember going there, and we were talking about how the city was more diverse than he remembered when he grew up. And we were talking about that. It's funny because my dad, he was not an activist kind of guy. I didn't realize he was a liberal until he died. It'll be 8 years ago here in a couple of months. But I remember this conversation one time when he says, I grew up when Bob La Follette was governor, and we did things right up there. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to remember my history classes. Yeah, but he told me I popped off at him one night. I said, come on, Dad, here's the real test. Who'd you vote for in 72? And he goes, McGovern. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad, I was like, Dad, only 6 people voted for him. He didn't vote for him. Are you kidding? He's like, well, I did. And anyways, but neither here nor there. But he was from Kenosha, and And we had that discussion even back then. That was 2005, I think. And I said, well, Dad, what do you think it's like up here right now? And he says, well, I'm hoping it's better. He says, I would seriously hope that with different groups, moving into the city, like that it'd be, he thought it was a good thing. How's it been though? What's it like in Kenosha for you?
We moved up here in 2002. And then I had my daughter in 2003. So I've been in this area now for about 17 years. And I have to say, and I said this when we moved up here, culturally speaking, in terms of people of different backgrounds interacting with each other, this area, Southeast Wisconsin, and in that I will include Milwaukee.
All that would be Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Oak Creek, all of that. They're about 20 to 25 years behind Chicago.
Wow.
Happened here that when we moved, my ex-husband is white. So when we first moved up here, we still got looks. Walking and you get the never happened in Chicago. I just thought to myself, I don't know if these people understand this stuff. 10 years before, no, not 10, maybe like 12 years or so before we moved up here, a friend of mine from high school, we came up here with her mom, my mom, and me. We went to the Prime Outlet malls. This is right around the time they were like kind of new. We're shopping, and we're in this little store, and I had an armful of things. My friend had an armful of things. We go up to the register to ask if we could be let into a dressing room. And the lady at the register, I kid you not, said, well, I'm sure glad you guys are, you came up to check out what we have here. We don't get many colored people around here.
Wow.
We were like, and you probably won't. We left everything on the counter and walked out.
And when was this?
This was, well, okay, maybe it was longer than what I'm saying. No, we were still in high school. So this would have been late 80s. Okay.
Wow.
So the late 80s around here, calling African Americans colored. Okay.
I think that's something I want to say about that. I cut it too much, but I'm down here in Florida, and so I'm thinking late 80s. I was actually out west then. I'd been in the Army, but that's, I got out of high school here in 81, class of 81. And people think of that as like a Southern thing, right? Primarily. I remember studying under James Cone at Union. He would say, we would talk about civil rights history in a class I took with him, Martin Malcolm in America. And he would talk about how, the North was kind of like, hey, yeah, y'all Southern people down there, you better get it together. He says, but they themselves did not recognize their own, or chose not to recognize, perhaps, their own prejudices. As he put it, it would be like, we're all about, okay, we're up here in Levittown on Long Island in our subdivision. And so we're going to be good, like, white, northern liberal folks. We're going to send some money down there to Slick, and we're going to do this and that, and write our letters to our senator and congressman. But then, like, down the road, when, say, black families wanted to move into that neighborhood, they were kind of like, oh, no, wait a minute. What about the property values and, all that garbage that went on? Yeah. So this is up north you're talking about.
Yeah, up here, it can be like that. The neighborhood where my marital home is, my ex still lives there. So my daughter's there on the weekends, and my sons still stay there because they're, going to school and staying home. So I'm there at least once. Well, I go there every day and pick up my daughter. But at any rate, that subdivision is called Whitecaps. I don't know if you remember.
I know very little of Kenosha per se. I remember.
No. This is from recent news. When Jacob Blake was shot and the protests were happening that second night, I think it was the second night, and there were reports about a subdivision that was arming themselves.
Right. Yes.
That was Whitecaps.
Was that what you posted about that one night on Facebook? Yes. I remember that post. That was when I said
Yes.
I wanted to meet you and I wanted to interview you because
I
what you wrote is so powerful.
I was so angry. I didn't have time to be scared.
Can you share that story? Because not everyone on here probably knows about it.
Okay, so the second night of the protests, a group of idiots, for lack of a better term, decided, even though Whitecaps is literally on the other side of Kenosha, it's near, you would know at least this, Whitecaps is right by the 94.
Okay.
The protests were by the lakefront.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's other side of town, basically. Yeah.
Right? You literally drive all the way through. So these people, because of the protests happening downtown, 4 miles away, decided they were in danger and they had to arm themselves and block every entrance into the subdivision with trucks and their AR-15s.
This is no police presence either. This is just
no police whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of idiots. And so I had to take my daughter home. It was, she had to go and be with her dad for the weekend. So I went, and I was breaking curfew, but so were they. They were outside. We were supposed to be in, right? They weren't either. So whatever. So I'm trying to turn in to the first opportunity to turn into the subdivision. It's blocked by this truck kind of kitty corner, angled across. Mm-hmm. And there are 2 or 3 guys there, and they've got guns milling around. And for a split second, I have to work on my temper. But for a split second, I was like, I do have good car insurance.
I picture you being something like Princess Leia.
I wouldn't have hit them. I'm not gonna injure a human. I'm not them. But I was like, I wonder if I could push their truck out of the way with my car. I didn't. So I go to the second entrance, and there's another truck, but this time he's just like kind of parked in the road. I can get around him. He flashed his lights. I flashed mine back. Like, what, we doing this? What are you doing? So I got my daughter home, and then I'm going out of the subdivision. So I'm thinking I'll take this more obscure exit. No, there was a caravan of cars in front of me.
Wow.
And they stopped in the middle of the road so they could chit chat with each other, because of course, what else do you do while defending your home but socialize and bring each other meals, right? That's right. What you do. Sure. And you make other people have to wait on your time. So I drove around them and I pulled around, and now I'm trying to get out. And there was this man at that entrance standing in the middle of the road with his gun. There were 5 or 6 men on the corner. So as I approach, and I'm approaching slowly, it's a subdivision, I'm only going like 20 to begin with, and now I'm slowing down even more.
Right.
We kind of lock eyes. Like, he can see me, I can see him, and he just stands there for about 10, 15 seconds.
And is he like blocking your access to get out?
Yes.
He's in the middle of the road, holding you up with a gun. Right.
Because the entrance is like, there's like an island in the center. So like, people coming in come in one way, and people going. And
you do the little, around
the one of them. They put up like cones or whatever, so you couldn't use one. Only one side could be used to go in and out. They had a car on the other side and the cones. Then he's standing in the center of the other side.
Wow.
And his buddies are on the corner to my right. He starts walking towards the car. So I take my foot off the brake and I start like gliding towards him, because I'm thinking, I'm going to win that fight. I am in a car. You are just a man. Yes, you have a weapon, but it's a car.
I'm bigger and heavier than you.
Yeah. So he just kind of stands there for a while. He looks over at his buddies, And then he kind of like waves me through, which that's the part that made me mad. How dare you think you get to give me permission to drive in a neighborhood where I own a home? Who are you?
Right. Right.
And what? There was nobody came to that neighborhood. It turned out they had this group, this Kenosha militia something. They had sent out this false text that went viral that all of these, urban people
Right.
driving down from Milwaukee and up from Chicago, which in this area is translation for code for Black people.
Right.
Black people live. They live in Milwaukee and they live in Chicago. They're coming and they're going to overrun the subdivision. Protect yourselves. Don't go out. Don't do anything. It was a very frightening text. And I got a copy of it from a friend. And then another friend was like, no, I think it's a hoax. But then my daughter, in her age group, it was going like wildfire on Twitter.
And how old is your daughter? Is she in high school?
Yeah, she's 17. 17. Yeah. Okay. She's a senior this year. So
happy senior year to her. I hope it all goes well.
Yes, we are. I mean, she's learning in person. But so far the school seems to be taking the social distancing very, 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 very seriously. So hopefully it'll be okay. But that night, it just kind of underscored to me that in this area, when we first moved up here, Wisconsin was a blue state. It had, I think, the previous 3 presidential elections had gone blue.
Right. Yeah. It carried Obama both times, and before that, and it was part of that when the blue wall. It was up
Michigan, we had Russ Feingold.
Yeah,
we had Russ Feingold. We just thought we were the bees.
Scott Walker's kind of an anomaly. I mean, a little bit, like I said, in the sense that when you go back, I was a U.S. history major, and I do remember Bob La Follette. He was governor back in the 30s, I guess it was 20s, 30s, and FDR got a lot of his ideas basically for the New Deal off Bob La Follette. Say, hey, what are they doing in Wisconsin? It looks good. Let's tinker with it and try it out.
Here's the thing, though. I think what a lot of people don't understand about Wisconsin, I think a lot of Black people understand this because it's typical. When middle class and lower class white people think they're the only ones sitting at the table sharing the pie, they're more than generous and more than happy to share with their fellow man and to lift each other up. That's great. But let the other move in. And now you're feeling uncomfortable, right? And when you have that kind of influx, because that's what happened from the 80s to now, there's been an explosion for Wisconsin anyway, of diversity. So you've got our little area, Racine, Kenosha, is one of the most diverse areas. Of course, you've got Milwaukee and you have Madison. The majority of the rest of Kenosha, Wisconsin, is quite homogenous, right? And
it's like white and there's cows. Is it that sort of thing? And then there's the air show in Oshkosh.
They do odd things, like they all say they're going up north. Every summer, everybody goes up north. I don't know where they're going. I don't care to go. They all have to have a bonfire at least 3 times every summer. These are the rituals that they do.
You have a cheesehead.
I'm not knocking it. It's just I grew up in a way more urban setting, so I don't.
And where did you grow up at? Where did you grow up at?
In Chicago.
So as you went from Chicago, from the city on up over, right? And for people who don't know, like basically Kenosha is like you go over the state line because Chicago's kind of butts right up to Wisconsin, and you go over the line, and more or less you're in Kenosha after a few miles. It's the first.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally you cross what is that, Russell Road, and you're in Kenosha County.
Right.
And like 6 more miles, you're in Kenosha.
Right.
You're barely where our subdivision was. That's definitely a bedroom community. Most of those people work in Illinois, just like I did for most of the time that I've been up here.
Right, because a lot of people take the train, they commute down.
Yes,
I did that when I was a kid.
And the people around here, I would say, like when we first moved up here, remember I said it was 2002. So you know what was happening around then? The start of the housing bubble.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So when we moved up here, our subdivision there were still homes being built, right? We bought someone's starter home because they, I don't know, were more responsible and got a better house, whatever. Anyway, we got their starter home. And it was, I mean, we weren't the only, well, I think we were the only interracial family, but I wasn't the only Black person. You know, and there's some Black families too, and there were some Indian families that I saw. There were one or two Asian families, but still, we were in the minority, right? But everybody seemed to be oh so friendly. Mm-hmm. It's the myth of the suburbs, I think.
The myth of the suburbs.
The myth of the suburbs, because underneath that howdy neighbor, there's this judgment of you don't quite fit in, but I'm too polite to actually say so. But I would do a lot of microaggressions towards you, like complain if your lawn is too long, or I think your kids were making too much noise.
Gonna ride you a little more than average.
Little microaggression.
Right.
And when you grow up, I think, in a big city like Chicago, you can make a choice to not interact with other racial groups. I mean, Chicago is very diverse, yes, but it's separated by neighborhood. It's very segregated.
Right.
Except for maybe the north side. And I before we moved up here, my husband and we lived on the north side, so it was very diverse. But if you didn't want that diversity, you didn't have to experience it in Chicago. You could live in an all-white neighborhood. You could live in an all-Black neighborhood. You could live in a Chinese neighborhood, a Japanese neighborhood, a Korean neighborhood. You didn't have to interact with anybody you didn't want to. I chose to. That's one of the most beautiful things about living in a big city. So for me, when I come up here and I hear people being afraid of urban people and scary Chicago and scary Milwaukee, it just goes to show like they have never interacted with anybody else. And the fact that these people are coming to them, these people are coming and buying homes in our communities. They already don't like the Illinois people come here and buy homes anymore. Anyway, what is that they call us? FIBs, I think. Yes, that's what
it's like Oregon. They don't like folks from California coming up to Oregon, but they do it anyways.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. They call them. I mean, I'm not going to say it, but see if you can find the acronym for Look up.
I think I take a guess.
You know, that's what they call them. So, as the economy got worse, and this is what always happens, and any group of people will do this. When hardship happens, you want to blame something or someone. And it is so easy to blame who you see as the other. It must be them. It couldn't possibly be my great neighbor Sally over there or Bob down the street. It must be Trinaka.
And Trump is like intensifying
and that. It must be, because I don't want to think badly of people who look like me, who worship at the same places I worship. It's easy for me to dehumanize her.
Right.
I think over the past 20 years, that's what I've seen. I have seen an area that on the surface seemed to be pretty progressive and blue. And I have experienced this with actual people that interacted with me, I'd say from 2002 to about 2010 or so. And now, man, some of the things I've seen them post on Facebook via like friends of friends will like send me a screenshot. Mm-hmm. These are people that I've had. these are people that I have, gone to parties with. Suddenly, all Black people are criminals. That's that they've ruined Kenosha. It's not shocking because, like I said, anytime there's a hardship, and I'm not saying African Americans aren't immune to this, because I know for a fact that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was out there correcting a lot of my brothers and sisters about being suspicious, judgmental, and some downright hateful towards Asians and Asian Americans. And I was like, seriously, guys? Everybody's gonna like, they're focused on that for now, but they're gonna come right back to us. I don't know what you're doing right now. You're not joining them. That's not the way this works. They're diverted for a second, but once they get bored with that, and they will, they're gonna go back to what's familiar to them, which is demeaning you.
Right. Okay.
They were brought up on that. They weren't brought up on demeaning Asians. Okay, so give it a couple of months. They'll be right back for you in a minute. So I don't know why you're over there with them. That's stupid. So I think at this point, I kind of vacillate between hope and my natural tendency towards what I call pragmatic cynicism.
Pragmatic cynicism. That's it. That's what I am. Yes, a pragmatic cynic. People hate us, don't they? But we're realists.
I'm a realist. I cannot help it. I had a funny discussion with an older gentleman on Facebook today who was explaining why he was going to vote for Trump. And he first tried to say, because he was on a progressive Christian woman's post and he was commenting, oh, you can't use your Christianity you're supposed to be separation of church and state, and on and on. And so I said, well, what about the majority of Trump supporters are in fact evangelical Christians, and they insist they're voting their faith by,
right.
He's like, well, I'm not doing that. I think his policy is his policies. And I said, okay, his policies speak towards a more selfish worldview than I have. The policies that you like are the ones that benefit the very fewest people.
The ones Jesus wouldn't be preaching? Is that what you're trying to say?
That was my point. I said, I don't ascribe to a worldview of what I call personal morality over community good.
There you go. All right.
I cannot vote for someone because I know I'm in that group of people that'll get that tax break.
I think it's like, that's it. I understand like individualism, and you care about what happens with yourself and people right around you. But I think one of the problems in our country is like individualism is a great thing, but we're like hyper individualism or something. We don't have a sense of community.
We don't have a sense of community.
For their own interest. What's the interest of the group? What's the interest of the town or the city or the state or the country or
if you think about what Christ was always exhorting us to do, it all had to do with relationship to others.
Right.
Okay. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. When you do that for the least of these, you do it for me. It's not the whole idea of personal redemption, personal salvation, personal faith is nowhere in the Gospels.
The Lord's Prayer is in plural, right? It's give us our day.
Think about what the early Christian church was. It was a household. Household. It wasn't a mega church where you went once a week and you gave whatever money you felt like giving, and then you were absolved until the following Sunday.
It wasn't a program.
Right. It wasn't a place where you got to feel better than the people that didn't get to get in. That is not what our faith should be grounded in. So this idea of personal morality and saying, like this gentleman was saying, well, I like what policy? What are you talking about? He mentioned economic policies. He mentioned Israel. He mentioned, I think that's all he had, quite frankly. Yes. And military, like that whole, like, law and order.
Right. Okay.
And I
That's
said,
a code right there too.
Right. And I said, well, Bahrain, the whole thing with the United Emirates and Bahrain, they weren't at war with Israel. Right. They've been working with Israel for years because they don't like Iran. You guys just don't pay attention because Americans have the attention span of gnats. And you have the intellectual capability of potatoes. I'm sorry. Like, see, that's what I mean. I'm blunt. Americans on the whole are stupid when it comes to world politics. Absolutely stupid.
You get no argument from me on that. I was born in Germany and brought here, and I was raised in Europe some, so I learned that it's more than 50 states.
I mean, some of it isn't our fault. I mean, when you look at the decline of our media, you look at the decline of teaching people critical thinking skills. We don't teach logic anymore. We don't teach philosophy. We don't, like I said, anything critical thinking, we don't teach it anymore.
People can't tell the difference between editorial and journalism. I've noticed that even college students can't do it.
Yes.
Editorial, like Marino Dowd in the New York Times or something, right?
Well, because it's now, it's not information, it's infotainment. The major news outlets are chasing that almighty dollar. They are beholden to the people that sponsor their shows. Mm-hmm. It is no accident that the last time we had presidential debates, 3 of the main sponsors of the debates on TV, you know who they were?
No.
From companies. Right when we were talking about affordable health care, right when you're talking about, hey, how come if I was in Sweden, you'd only charge me $1 a pill, but here you charge anywhere from $6 to $48 a pill, right? Right when you're having that conversation, here they come and underwrite the news. And now all of a sudden you see all of these positive news stories about all the advancements. And I work in the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, so I know what they're doing. And so yes, some of it is not Americans' fault, right? There's a lot of forces at work to manipulate them. But at the end of the day, when you are grown, you own your, you know what I'm saying, right? So if you don't know that the United Emirates and Bahrain is not going to be a path towards Middle East freedom. Okay, that's only the small political ruling party. Most of the people in those countries are not happy that their leaders did that, but they don't have the kind of political system where they can really speak out about it either.
Right.
Saudi Arabia, never in a million jillion years will they do it. Never in a million, jillion, gajillion years. So you have this situation where, and even if it did work, here's the theory that they're working with. We are going to abandon a people that we have let down since World War I. And a little bit
the Palestinians.
The Palestinians who have been lied to, who have been marginalized, who have been treated like second-class citizens in their own homeland. We are going to tell them they got to suck it up. And how are we going to do that? We're going to get their friends to tell them. That is not one of the most callous, mean-spirited. I'm not surprised, Jared Kushner, because he's evil. He looks like a wax figure, but don't get fooled. That he's a demon. to tell people we're going to take away all hope from you, and we're going to do it by going through the back door to your so-called friends who, for reasons of their own, these political leaders in these smaller countries, because I heard Trump was like, oh, we're going to get more countries. It's going to be bigger countries. Whatever. He's probably going to get Kuwait and a couple of others. But these people have monetary interests. And this is why they're doing it. They're getting arms deals from the US in exchange for normalizing relations with Israel, which means that our military industrial complex gets to make the cheddar. See, all you have to do is follow the money. That's what I mean by I'm a cynic because I'm pragmatic. If it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. And if I follow the money, I usually find the source of the trouble. I've hardly ever been proven wrong with those two things in my 48 years. I think when you call that kind of thing out, and I'm not apologetic about calling it out, this is, I think we are at a point in history of the world and our country most specifically, where we can either turn a corner and start to slowly do some good, or we're going to go so far down a dark path that we will not find our way back for at least 3 to 5 generations.
I sense that myself. I've been saying that to people, that it's like we're at well, are you familiar with Phyllis Tickle? Does that mean remember the Great Emergence? 500
years.
Every 5, I think, yeah, it's more than the church having the Roman scale. It's like I say, with the Reformation, it wasn't just religious. There was the scientific thing going on, the age of discovery, all these things, colonization, good and bad. A lot of things went on.
Yeah, from 1510 to 50 was some of the biggest upheaval in quote unquote advanced or known world, right?
Right.
But you could even go at that same time period to China, to Africa, to South America. Major changes. Like in South Africa, I remember reading that was a dynamic shift in power from having smaller city states to these leaders that banded people together, which then ended up in leaders like, you had a Shaka Zulu, like, that all started at the beginning of, what would that be? Like, I always get it wrong. Would that be the 16th century? Because it's 15th.
Right. Yeah. That always messes me up too.
You know what I mean?
About 500 years ago.
So we're due. So we're either going to do something amazing, or because, like I said, I'm a cynic, humanity is trash. We'll either do something really stupid and be in that wilderness for 40 years, wandering like the idiot sheep we have become. And I, for one, and I'm speaking specifically of America, I made the decision around February, before the pandemic really hit. I said, I have a sinking suspicion this man might win re-election.
Same here.
And I will not live in that kind of country. I literally feel like I can't breathe here anymore sometimes. And I'm tired of walking around angry all the time. And I keep telling a lot of my friends and family, I'm like, if you are not African American, I would say brown people too, to a degree, but I think the African American experience is a little bit more unique, right? Every Black person I know has a degree of historical PTSD. Every single one of us. We are angry. We are frustrated. We cry for no reason. We indulge in self-destructive behaviors. We hurt those that are closest to us in our communities. These are all hallmarks of people who have PTSD. And you're talking about a whole generation upon generation upon generation. You think I don't know when I'm being followed in the store? You think don't know when you're making a joke about my name? You think I don't know when you are assuming that I'm a single mom? You think I don't know? You think when I first moved into my subdivision, I was here maybe like a month. And we have mailboxes that sit on the corners of the buildings, right? There's like 8 units per building. And so anyway, I went out early to get the mail, and I was sitting by the mailbox looking at the mail in my car. I couldn't have been there 3 minutes, right? All of a sudden, lights behind me. Then all of a sudden, another cop car pulls in front of me. They blocked me in. And it was a warm day, warm morning, but I rolled up the passenger window because it was down. I rolled it back up. One cop over here, one cop over here. I rolled this one down. What? Well, we got a call. No business of mine. Well, they said it was a suspicious vehicle. I'm like, it's a Ford Escape. Seriously, how suspicious is a gray Ford Escape in the suburbs?
Right.
Every car parked in this subdivision looks like my car. Well, but can we see your ID? No. Why? Because you don't need my ID. And the other guy starts tapping on the window. Can you roll it down? Nope. Talk to one at a time. That's all I can take. I can't talk to you both at once. If you want to talk, I'll roll that window up and I'll open that window. And he's like, well, why are you so suspicious? I'm like, why do you think, man? I know you want me to roll the window down so you can claim you smelled something. That's what they do. Right? It's not going down like that today, sir. So I was like, am I being detained? Well, but see, the thing is, but am I being detained though?
Right.
Well, you see, I was like, yeah, I have to go to work. So I'll ask you one more time. Are you detaining me? Because if you're not, I'm going to go around your car and go to work. But ma'am, we got a call. And I'm like, I can't help you. There are a lot of people that leave for work early in the morning and check their mail. There's nothing suspicious about that. That would not stand up in court. And now I'm really late for work. So I put my car in reverse. The guy over here, he backed away from the car. He's like, yeah, I don't want to bother with her. But this one over here, he's hand on the taser.
Got the attitude going.
I was like, buddy, part of me wishes you would try something because I'm broke and I will sue you and sue this city. I really don't have time. And I just pulled off. And when I got to work and I told a coworker what happened, and he was like, you could have been shot. You could have been. I said, but it's one thing for them to shoot you in a poor Black neighborhood. I'm not in a poor Black neighborhood. I'm in a quasi upper middle class condo subdivision, which will make them think twice. Because if they shoot the wrong person around here, well, won't go well for them, right? Now, had I been 2 miles east, oh, sure, they would have done a Jacob. I'm sure the whole Jacob Blake thing could have gone down, something like that, or Sandra. Wow. But I'm not on a highway, right? Because on a highway, then they just assume all Black people are coming from a bad neighborhood. And I'm not in a bad neighborhood. So that, and I have a newer car. So all those things together, and they could see I have mail. Yeah, they're not going to chance it with me. I mean, like I said, I'm pragmatic. Now, had I been somewhere else, maybe I would have been, I don't want to say deferential, but maybe I would have been a little bit more patient with the situation. But over here, I was like, no, I'm going to act like every other entitled person that lives in this subdivision and treat them like the employees and civil servants that they are.
Bam. All right.
That's what I'm going to do. And I challenge you to do something to me today. Do it this morning. I have time to be petty today. So things are not, for me, I have made the decision. I want to know what it's like to live somewhere other than the United States of America.
Okay.
like African American, but not be in America.
Where would you like to visit, or where would you like to live or see?
Well, in a perfect, well, like I said, I'm pragmatic. I go where my career would take me most likely. And like I said, I'm in the pharmaceutical industry. So I would go to Scotland. I would go to South Korea. I would consider Japan. These are areas where the market is like just getting really, really big for what things that I do, what I do. Really want to go to South Korea. Will more than likely go to South Korea next year with my daughter. She really wants to go. She's a big K-pop fan, and she got me into it, and I fell down that rabbit hole, and now I'm like with her, jamming at the concerts and stuff, or we would be if there weren't any quarantines. But I want to have like an adventure, and I want to be outside of this Americanness, because I don't know if you saw, I did a post a few months back, and I started off by saying Black people in America are like, it's like being in a relationship with an abuser.
I remember that post. Go on about, I don't remember it, every detail, but I remember that post when you mentioned it.
There are things about America I love, right? But America seems to be intent on my demise. It is like being a battered partner in a domestic abuse situation. You love your abuser. You'll even make excuses for your abuser. You keep forgiving your abuser, keep taking them back, making excuses for how they acted. Well, he didn't mean to pop me in the eye. America didn't mean to cheat my ancestors out of generational wealth. Right? And at a certain point, when you're in a toxic relationship like that, you have to make a decision. Either I'm going to do what's right for me and walk away, or I'll die here. I don't want to die here. I don't want to die a physical death, right? But I also don't want to die a spiritual death. I don't want to become so angry, so bitter that I can't feel God's love, that I can't enjoy his creation, that I can't interact with people fully. And I feel like that is going to happen here. My circle of friends will narrow. The places where I feel comfortable going, that list is going to get shorter. It already has. There are places I just won't go to anymore. There are activities I won't participate in because I'm not about the BS. And if I'm rubbed the wrong way, we'll always be the person that did it. So, and I can feel all that work I did, I think, when I first had my children, to come back to the church, to open myself to God's love and promise, to become a more loving person. I'm not going to say gentle, but let's say more patient, right? I feel it becoming undone. This country is toxic. Toxic. And so if I have to go live for a couple of years somewhere else, because, even if you are in a toxic relationship with an abuser, say it's a drug addict, right? And it's your kid. The relationship is toxic, right? But you still love your kid. You might want to distance yourself for a while, but you'll have that door open. If they can get better, if they can make a difference, I'm right there supporting you and helping you and welcoming you back, with the side eye, into my life. But as long as you are exhibiting toxic, destructive behavior, I have every right to remove myself from that.
So you're saying you're giving it a little space.
Give it some space, right? Because why would I keep letting somebody kick me down, like kick me in the gut? Why would I keep letting somebody molest me in this way? Literally molest me. If I could, the number of microaggressions I go through during a workday, like the greatest thing about the pandemic is I don't have to work with people in person.
So are you working from home primarily now?
Now I'm not. Now I'm back in an office, but so far everybody there seems nice. And what's interesting is they did a background check for this new position I have. And it's a great company. I like them. It's a smaller company than the companies I've worked with in the past, like big ones like Abbott and AstraZeneca, like big companies. Now I'm at smaller companies. So they are very thorough when they vet people that they want to hire for management positions. So they did I got a thorough background check. And so after I had the first interview over the phone, I made my Facebook account, or I thought I did. I tried to make it like invisible. Like if you tried to search my name, it wouldn't come up. But I guess these companies that do the background checks, they have a way around that. I don't know what it is. So I get hired, right? They offer me the job. I'm feeling all good. First day, the director of HR is like, I need to talk to you. We're really, it's kind of an uncomfortable conversation because I don't want you to get offended. It's like, we see a lot of the stuff we've seen some of the stuff you have on Facebook. And I was like, oh no.
oh crap.
But actually, what they were concerned about was social distancing, because they were assuming that because I wrote all this stuff that I was like right there in the middle of the protest, like driving around the country to every BLM march. I'm like, no, I don't do that, man. I socially distance. That's for the younger, healthier people. I can't be out there. But it was like for a moment, I was like, oh no. But they were like, no, we support everything you're doing, which that was shocking.
Wow.
Because these were these older executives. I mean, it's a small company, but these are vice president of operations.
Button down people
for manufacturing. I mean, right. They really get, they usually walk around with like hard hats on. But normally not the type of people that would be like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But I told them, like, I don't mix my work and my private life. I would never discuss at work who I am outside of work, because I don't go to work to make friends. I don't go to there socialize. I mean, I make jokes and I'm friendly and everything, but when I go home, and I never invite anybody over that I work with. I like keeping those worlds separate. Keeps
compartmentalized.
Right. And, and I'm glad that they saw it, because now they know exactly where I stand on certain things. And I think that might actually help me, because maybe, they were like, she's great. We really want her for the position, but y'all better be careful around her. I'm telling you, I saw her Facebook post. She is not going to put up with your bullshit. So I think it might have helped me, because so far, I mean, everybody's been, they're not deferential or afraid or anything, but they've just been really relaxed and easygoing, and I'm not getting all the microaggressions I knew at work. Things like, why are you so angry when you say this? Yeah, because I'm the angry Black woman. Maybe I'm just telling you you're doing your job wrong. Well, why do you have to be a know-it-all? Because you know how us uppity, angry Black women are. It's little things. And sometimes when I try to explain to people who don't go through that on a daily basis, they're like, maybe you're just picking at things. I'm like, don't gaslight me. This is my reality. I've been dealing with this since I was yay high. When I was in kindergarten and I was going to skip a grade originally. And one of the teachers said, well, you could let her skip a grade, but really, what good's that going to do? You talk really, really good English. Well, what was I supposed to speak? I am in things like that. So
I understand. I got you. I say I understand. I'm hearing you. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
After at 48, it's I don't want to say it's frustrating because it's not surprising at age 48, but some of the things that people come up with, they actually think they are the first person to come up with that particular insult or microaggression.
Wow.
There's nothing new at this point. It's 2020. It's all been said before. It's all been other, aspects of my physicality or my personality or any part of my culture, whatever. Somebody's made fun of it before. Somebody's ridiculed it. Somebody's harassed me. Somebody said this, or this. And a lot of times I remember telling a friend of mine, one of my closest friends from college, she's white. And we were at a club or something, and this guy wanted to dance, and I didn't want to dance. I was talking with my friend. So of course he like got mad and said that I was how did he put it? A bougie black, you know what?
All right.
So she was getting mad, just mad. I was drinking my drink. She said, "Didn't that make you mad?" I said, "Do you think that's the first time that some drunk white guy has called me that, thinking it's going to get me mad? Really? He's not even original. Like, come up with another term or something. Like, come on, man." And she said, "Well, but how do you?" I said, you live with, that's what you know, right? That's my reality. That happened. That has happened. The first time somebody called me that, I was 11.
Wow.
Right? So you really think saying that to me at 48 is going to make me feel some kind of way? And you wonder why a lot of times I think Black women in particular have this stereotype of we're harsh, right? Or we're not very empathetic, or we don't feel things, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not emotional. Yeah. You wonder why? You develop a thick skin so you can survive. And so, yeah, somebody calling me a name, or somebody, not wanting to hire me, or being surprised when I show up at the interview because they heard my voice on the phone, and then I show up and they're like, I'm confused. All of these things, I've already been there, done that. Unless some aliens come from outer space and they've got new space terminology for Black people, that I guarantee you I've been insulted in so many other languages that I even know those words. So I'm just like, give it your best shot. Like, good luck to you. God bless you. Everybody deserves a shot at greatness, but I guarantee you'll fail, because I've had to navigate that my entire life. Part of me finds it amusing, because it's an opening for me then to shoot you like a fish in a barrel. And I find that enjoyable sometimes, because I can be very petty. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, I think I'm going to live in South Korea for a couple of years, see how that works out. Learn a new language, meet different people, maybe travel even more of the world. And I'm not trying to say that I think that other countries are like a utopia. I mean, South Korea, they just had commercials with comedians in blackface. So,
okay.
So, but I think it'll be different. It'll be different, right? I won't be carrying the burden of the history of my native country while living in my native country. At least I'll be a little removed from it for a little bit.
I see what you're saying. It's kind of refreshing in the sense that it's a different culture. So your awareness, you're automatically more eyes open.
They may dislike me for totally different reasons.
That's that pragmatic cynic going on right there.
Right. Like, I know that they're in smaller villages. At least I know in China and Japan. I'm not quite sure if Korea is like this, because they're a little bit more they've had a little bit, I think, more interaction, even in smaller towns. There are some people, older, I think that mainly older, I'm not saying anybody our age or younger, and they see a Black person, because they don't, it's a small town in like Japan or China. Black people aren't there. So the first time one comes, they're like, is your skin dirty? Like and you know, part of you is like, I'm so insulted. But then the other part of me is like, they honestly don't know. Like, they live in the middle of wherever the hell I'm at right now. And I'm literally the first Black person they've seen up close. They don't know. They don't. And yeah, they're going to want to be like, can I touch your hair? Then you got to smack them because they got to learn quick. Don't touch me. But it'll be because America was very good at exporting its racism. So of course that kind of, you know, stereotype precedes me wherever I go in the world. Thank you, America. But they also don't, even if they have some of the stereotypes, they don't have all of it. They didn't grow up with it. They didn't grow up steeped in it, right? So a lot of what they think is a lot of preconceived ideas, and then honestly having absolutely no idea. And you cannot say that there are people like that in America. Well, maybe people recently immigrated, but people who were born here can't say they have that experience where they don't know stuff.
Right.
If I go to another country, they honestly may not. There's a chance that they really might not know. If I'm in Iceland, they may not know. Finland, maybe they don't. I don't know. But here, if somebody here tells me that they don't know about systemic racism.
Like Trump tried to do the other night in the debate. He said, well, I don't know if there's really like racism in America, but I'm not into it, or something like that.
No American. Really, I kind of challenge some Europeans too. Those that participated in the slave trade and colonialism and imperialism. Yes, you do. It's part of your history too. We all share the same history. And I'm not trying to say that to make people feel bad, but I'm saying at least be honest. Just be honest. That's what most marginalized people want. We just want you to see us. And then we want you to be honest. Don't gaslight me. Don't tell me that my experience isn't actually happening while it's literally happening. What are you doing, America? What are you doing, Great Britain? What are you doing, Australia? You really gonna tell me I didn't just experience my life because it makes you feel bad to think that I did? Imagine how I feel, right? So I just think that I'm doing all I'm emotionally able to do is support Biden because it was not my first pick or second.
Who was your pick? Who would you like to see?
I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Like I said, I don't like labels so much because so often they're hijacked and manipulated by people. Like the term evangelism. I mean, originally UCC, according to the strict definition, we are evangelical. We can't claim it now, right?
Right.
So when I hear progressive liberal, part of me kind of rolls my eyes. Like, there's issues with them too. And so I get uncomfortable saying like, yeah, there's no other political party I'm a Democrat because I got no choice. But if we had more of like a parliamentary system or something like that, I would definitely be a democratic socialist. I think that's closer to what I believe in. I'm not a moderate by any stretch of the imagination, but I also believe that our tax dollars are not spent wisely by either party. So if that make me a fiscal conservative as well, then probably, yeah. Like, I think y'all are spending too much of our damn money on stupid stuff, like the military. We don't need more bombs. We don't need another tank. You can already defeat every army on the planet. Why are you building more stuff? But I'm all for paying a fair share of taxes so everybody's boat gets lifted, right? So for me, if there were a true democratic socialist party here, I'd probably join it. But the pragmatist in me won't let me give my vote to somebody that I know that could help that idiot in the White House win. Like the pragmatist,
right.
For Biden. I know I do. Obama's first term, loved. I mean, he went to my family, my home church, for crying out loud. Obviously, I'm going to be, my aunt was one of his pastors.
Wow.
The day. Yeah. So obviously I felt some kind of way until he got in office, and I was like, oh, why are you being so conciliatory? That's not why I voted for you. I literally voted for you to kick ass and take names. I literally voted for him because I was like, he's going to go in there and in a very dignified way, but he's still going to do it. He's going to tell these people where to go. Like, that's why I campaigned for him. That's why I did the phone banks. That's why I did the voter registration. When I say I supported him, I don't just mean I went and voted, right? I took my kids out there to the rallies. Second year into his term was when he started capitulating over certain things. And I was, and I'm not detracting from his presidency. I still think he did a lot of good. But it's very hard to be in that position and to get to that level of politics without knowing how to play the game, right? That is politics, and without being willing to give up certain things. To get that powerful, you do got to step on a few toes. You got to break a few eggs to make a cake. That's just the way our system works. It sucks, but it is what it is. But he was not the progressive I thought he was. That I thought he was in 2008, right? No, he's more of a centrist. And that's fine, because America can't really handle anything far.
Would your like critique of Obama say go as far regarding progressivism as say like Cornel West? I know Cornel was like really pro Obama, and then he had a few comments about Obama. He says basically, he's just not going far enough.
I think you're kind of like that. Yes, because the reason he got all those votes from such a strong coalition of people is ironically the same reason Trump got a lot of votes. People were tired of the way things go in Washington. And so you're like, that is the most opposite of what I see in Washington. Now I'm voting for that guy.
That's the change candidate.
The change candidate. And I honestly believe, I was like, he's going to go in there. Jeremiah Wright taught him how to do a great speech and really he's going to go on the Senate floor. He's going to give him what for in the first State of the Union. And then he's going to make a coalition and he's going to tell them, you don't have to come across the side of the aisle. We're going to pass shit without you. That's what I thought was going to happen. And then it didn't happen.
It sounds like Django showed up and got elected, like he kind of I love the movie Django. What's he say, Daniel? Hey, baby, it's me. That's such a great line. Sorry, just makes me think of Django.
Again, I think Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, she went to my high school.
Wow.
She graduated in 83. I graduated in 90. So I miss seeing her by a lot, but still. Lovely people, intelligent, driven. I believe very good people. I just think he was the president for that moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, he was the type of president he had to be. This is a different moment. And I thought that we needed a voice like Bernie Sanders, who had a decades-long track record of siding with the voices of the marginalized.
He has, yeah, definitely.
For a long, long, long time. And because like I said, I eschew labels. I think a lot of them kind of stupid, especially like political labels. I don't care if somebody thinks I'm a communist because I say I'm a democratic socialist. It just proves they're stupid, which I kind of knew already. I believe that there's enough wealth in this country for everybody, right? I believe everybody thinks there's this pie, right? This American pie, and everybody's fighting for a slice.
The zero-sum game.
Zero-sum game. Because what happens is the fat cats are not going to let you even sit at the table to try to get a slice. We're all fighting over the damn crumbs. It's their pie. The pie that we want, it's not even pie, right? There's enough for everybody. You don't have to fight over the crumbs. We don't have to live this way. That's the thing that it always gets me. We don't have to live in a country where, in a suburb like the one I live in, I could go down the street to the next biggest street and see somebody begging for food. And I live in a $230,000 condominium 3 blocks away. Why is there somebody begging for food? Right? Why, I drove past Popeyes the other day, tempting myself to get a chicken sandwich and reminding me that they're trying to kill us with all the stuff they put in there. I didn't get it. But I saw a sign where they were like, we're now hiring and paying $10 an hour! ! Why do we live in a country? Or somebody like Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg or even Bill Gates, right? Can amass the same amount of money as like 50 million Americans. And yet some random person will look at that advertisement and go, oh my God, I'm so grateful they're paying $10 an hour.
Trinaka, I got to leave it at that point because I got to wrap this up.
Okay.
And we're going to have to get together another time for sure.
Sure.
It's late night and I've got a message from the other part of the house. So I'm going to wrap it up. And I just want to thank my sponsors, Scarlet Cofer Art, who you can also find on Patreon, and hometownaction.org, which is a progressive community organization, grassroots, doing grassroots work in East Central Alabama and elsewhere. And David's Delicious Delights in Sealands Grove, Pennsylvania, who makes, I presume, though I haven't had one yet, the best cheesecake in the world.
You'll have to give me a link to them.
I will do that.
I love cheesecake. Even better if somebody else makes it.
All right. And we are out of here.
All right. We'll do it again sometime.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.